let's talk about Friedrich Nietzsche. But we're not going to treat him like some dusty old philosopher you'd read about in a textbook. No, we're going to look at his ideas as a real practical guide for how to actually live your life. And maybe, just maybe, how to end up loving it.
And we have to start with his most famous and probably most misunderstood quote of all time. You've heard it, for sure. God is dead. But what on earth did he actually mean by that? Because here's the thing. This wasn't some triumphant, atheistic victory cry. Not at all. It was an alarm bell. Nietzsche was warning Western civilization that a massive crisis of meaning was just around the corner. He saw this huge storm brewing on the horizon, and he gave it a name: nihilism. He realized that as the traditional foundations of meaning, things like religion, absolute morality, started to crack and crumble, a huge, empty void was going to open up in their place. And nihilism is really that deep, terrifying, sinking feeling that life is completely meaningless, that it's all empty, that nothing you do actually matters in the end. It's the void that, let's be honest, we all risk falling into at some point. So, okay, why are we so vulnerable to this? Why do we get stuck in that void? Well, Nietzsche's diagnosis comes down to our morality, the very rules we've been taught to live by. He argued that for centuries, we've been living under a system that's designed to keep us small, to keep us afraid.
And this brings us to his central challenge, a question he's basically asking each and every one of us. Why are you so afraid of your own potential? Why are we so scared to embrace our own strength, our own power to create meaning for ourselves?
So Nietzsche breaks this down into two completely different mindsets. On one side, you have slave morality. This is the herd mentality. It's all about playing it safe, fitting in. It praises things like pity and humility, and it actually frames weakness as a virtue. But then there's the master morality. And this isn't about dominating other people, it's about dominating yourself. It's about having the guts to create your own values, to live in a way that expresses your potential and affirms life.
All right, so how do you make that jump? How do you break free from the herd? Well, Nietzsche gives us the engine for this change. It's a core concept he called the will to power.
Now, this is not what it sounds like. It's not about dominating others or seeking political office. And it's not just about survival, and it's definitely not what Freud later talked about with the sex drive. For Nietzsche, the will to power is the fundamental drive in all of life to grow, to expand, to overcome challenges, and to express its own strength. You don't just want to survive, right? You want to thrive. And here's the crucial part. When we suppress that natural drive, when we push it down, we become bitter. We get resentful. But when we learn how to channel it, to harness it, we transform that energy. We stop complaining about how the world is, and we start creating our own meaning inside of it. Now, the ultimate goal of this creative process is what he called the Ubermensch, or the overman. And let's be really clear here, this is not a superhero. And yes, this concept was dangerously twisted and misused later in history, but for Nietzsche, it was simply an ideal to strive for, a human being who has completely conquered their own nihilism, who creates their own values, and who affirms every single part of life. The joy, yes, but also the suffering. Okay, but how do you know if you're actually doing it? Is there a way to measure whether you're living this kind of life? Well, Nietzsche came up with a powerful and, frankly, a pretty terrifying thought experiment to find out. He wants you to imagine this. Picture yourself in your loneliest moment, and a demon suddenly appears. And it tells you that the life you are living right now, with every single detail, every pain, every joy, every mistake, you're going to have to live it all over again and again and again, forever. Nothing changes. So, what is your immediate gut reaction? Would you throw yourself on the ground and curse that demon, falling into total despair at the thought of reliving all your failures and heartbreaks for eternity? Or would you look that demon in the eye and say, that was a divine thought, bring it on? Your answer to that question, your raw gut reaction, is the ultimate litmus test. It reveals, with brutal honesty, whether you're living a life you regret or a life you affirm so completely you'd gladly do the whole thing over and over and over again. This intense idea leads us to the final piece of the puzzle. It's the actual, practical tool for getting to a place where you can say yes to that demon. And it's a practice Nietzsche called Amor Fati. It's Latin, and it means love of fate.
And this is so much more than just passively accepting what happens to you. It's an active, passionate embrace of everything that's ever happened in your life. Every failure, every setback, every heartbreak, seeing it all as absolutely necessary to forge the person you are today.
I mean, listen to how Nietzsche put it himself. This is his formula for greatness: to want nothing, to be different. Not wishing you could change the past, not being anxious about the future, but loving your fate exactly as it is for all eternity. But look, a beautiful idea like that is completely useless if it just stays up in your head, right? Philosophy has to be practiced to mean anything. So how do we actually make Amor Fati real in our day-to-day lives? Well, here's one really powerful way to do it: the Amor Fati Journal. It's a simple but profound little exercise. You take a struggle, something from your life that still causes you pain or regret, and you consciously decide you're not going to ask, "Why me?" Instead, you're going to reframe it. You're going to finish this one sentence: "I love this fate because it."
So for example, let's say you lost your job. The old story, the old narrative is, why me? This is a total disaster. The Amor Fati narrative becomes, this was the pivot I needed. I love this fate because it is forcing me to grow. Or heartbreak. Instead of, I'm a broken failure, you could write, I affirm this pain. It's the price you pay for a heart that can actually feel, and I would never trade it for numbness. You're not denying the pain, you're making it a part of your strength.
You see what happens when you do this? You stop wasting all your energy fighting a past that you can never, ever change. You learn to move with the rhythm of your life. You learn to dance with your fate instead of constantly wrestling it to the ground.
Let's be crystal clear about what's at stake here. You have one life. The question isn't whether or not you're going to suffer. That's a guarantee. The only question is how you're going to respond to it. So, Nietzsche's challenge echoes down all these years to us right now. Don't just bear your life. Don't just endure it. Love it. Affirm it. The whole messy, beautiful, painful thing. So the real question is, are you ready to stop being a character in someone else's story and finally become the author of your own?